Hello and welcome once again to the video. In this one I shall be once again taking a look at the latest round of the 2025 Formula One World Championship. What I normally do is list down the finishing order, then the top 10 in the Drivers' Championship, then the rundown of the Constructors' Championship, and then I just chat about the race for a bit with my opinions, only my opinions, mostly opinion and not fact. My opinions are not supposed to be taken, strictly speaking, as fact, necessarily. But yeah, I've been a fan for many decades now of Formula One. So obviously I am full to the brim of opinions and facts as well. Right, so let's dive in, shall we? Use this pen first. Now, here we go. So it was round 17. Azerbaijan. I always think it's one of those words that, or names, basically, that is easy to spell because it seems to be, you think it's going to be tricky to spell. I get that in focus. You think it's going to be difficult to spell Azerbaijan. That sounds really difficult, doesn't it? But then you realise actually it makes perfect sense. Azerbaijan, which would be B-A-I, and then Jan, Azerbaijan. Yeah, an easy one. But it looks like it should be difficult. Okay, that was useless. Useless opinion. That was an example of a bad opinion of mine. Right, let's go to the top 10. So we have first place, Verstappen. Second, Russell. Now, is that definitely in focus? Excuse any wobbling while I do this. There might be a little... Oh, that was a lot of wobble. Okay. Third was... Who was third? Sainz, of course. Fourth was Antonelli. Fifth, Lawson. Then Tsunoda. Norris. Hamilton. Leclerc. And rounding out the points, Hadjar. I think that's in focus still. Okay, good. Let's put that up there somewhere. Okay, let's go with Bortoleto. And then Bearman. Albon. Ocon. Alonso. Hulkenberg. Stroll. Gasly. Colapinto. Piastri. Okay, so let's do the drivers now. Piastri out front still on 324. Norris. Verstappen closing in. Russell. 212. Leclerc 165. Hamilton 121. Antonelli 78. Stood in focus, I'd like to think. Let me just double check. There we go. Okay. 8th is Albon. 70. 9th is Hadjar. 39. 10th. Hulkenberg 37. Okay. Constructors Championship. So we have McLaren on 623. Now we have Mercedes on where are they? 290. Ferrari 286, Red Bull 272. Williams on 101. Racing Bull. I refuse to say Racing Bulls. Racing Bull 72. Aston Martin 62. Sauber 55. Haas 44. Alpine 20. Okay. Nice little drink. So, what did we think of that race? Fastest lap, Max Verstappen. I'm also going to write down wins so far this season. So Piastri's on 7, Norris is on 5, Verstappen's on 4, Russell's on 1, McLaren are on 12, Mercedes are on 1, Red Bull are on 4, aren't they? Yes. 0 for Ferrari, apart from that sprint win, of course. So what did we think of that race? I found myself hooked, and when there was only 5 laps left, I was like, no, because I was really transfixed by it. They're really tight racing around the street. It's intoxicating watching the cars grazing the barriers. So I was absolutely loving it. Plus, I was looking to see what was going to happen between Tsunoda and Lawson and Norris and Hamilton. So I found that really, really interesting. However, when you look at it, really, the race wasn't particularly interesting at all. I mean, the top 7 on the grid finished in the top 7 in the race. They were not all in the same order. In fact, I think only 2 were in the same order, Verstappen and Norris. Unless, Tsunoda was 6th on the grid, wasn't he, I think, but Lawson was 5th. Antonelli was, Lawson was 3rd, Antonelli was 5th, wasn't he, or something like that, I can't remember. Anyway, Sainz was 2nd on the grid, wasn't he? Russell was down in about 4th or 5th. So, but it was the same 7 anyway. Qualifying, of course, ended up being, would you class that as a total lottery? I mean, it didn't chuck it down with rain. They were not on and off rain tyres. But the constant red flags from accidents helped to jumble up the order a little bit. Plus the McLarens were struggling with their straight line speed. It's because of that massive long straight. And there's another long straight as well, but in particular that extremely long straight. That means that it's often quite a low downforce circuit. And McLarens are not very good on the low downforce tracks. So they were struggling, and they were trying to make up for it in the corners, which I think is why Norris and Piastri kept grazing the barriers. And in the end, Piastri did more than just graze the barrier. And Norris as well gave it a good old thump, I think, on Friday. But Piastri had a bigger one on in qualifying, wiping him out. And I think that's because they were having to try so hard going through the corners, because the straight line speed wasn't there. So that meant that they qualified way down the grid. So Verstappen had this win nailed on pretty much from qualifying, with just Sainz and Lawson behind him in 2nd and 3rd on the grid. It was supposed to be an easy win for Verstappen, and of course it was an easy win for Verstappen. He started on hard tyres, as did, who else started on hards? Hamilton started on hards, Russell started on hards. I think Tsunoda might have started on hards as well. But yeah, Verstappen wanted to start on hards because he wanted to go as long as possible, thinking that there would be at some point there would be a safety car. So he wanted to sort of like be the last one to stop, in a way, to give himself the maximum opportunity to catch a safety car. At the start, I thought Piastri would be out. There was a good chance he would be out on lap 1. And he was, but not in the way that I thought he would be. I didn't think it would be sort of halfway around the circuit. I think it was turn 5, wasn't it, that Piastri crashed. I thought it would be at the start, because I thought he has shown all year, Piastri's shown all year, especially in the early laps in Monza, just how good he is in a dogfight. In Monza, it was incredibly aggressive by Oscar, but incredibly clean as well. It's amazing how Oscar and Charles were able to dice in those early laps in Monza without having an accident. They both did so well there. That was fantastic racing by both of them. But I think Piastri has, throughout the year, shown himself to be the most, or joint most aggressive dogfighter, basically, alongside Max. So with him down in 9th on the grid, in uncharted territory for Oscar, and after his accident in qualifying, I thought he'd be out to prove himself, and I thought he would have a big accident at turn 1, and he may well have done had he not jumped the start. So in a way, I was right. He was so fired up and ready for the start that he actually jumped the start. Yeah, that was very unfortunate. And then, of course, the anti-stall kicked in, and he started, and then he stopped, and then he started again. And, of course, by then he's at the back of the grid, back of the field. And he would have had a penalty had he not crashed at turn 5. But what was I going to say about that? Oh, yes, I did mention that. So yeah, Piastri had an absolute disastrous weekend. I don't think that's a reflection on the races to come. Piastri seems to be, from what we've seen so far, very strong mentally. The only time this year that we've seen him really suffer a setback and still be mentally fine afterwards was, of course, Australia, where he spun out in the last laps on the rain. Ended up 9th instead of 2nd. So, but he showed resilience there. He came through that mentally strong. But, of course, he wasn't closing in on a championship then. So we will see what he's like in Singapore, whether or not it's actually affected him. I don't think it will have done. I think the whole race weekend was a blip for him. He's had a few of those. I mean, Monaco, he wasn't particularly quick either. In Italy, in Monza, he was only a little bit down on Norris, not much. But yeah, Monaco, he was sort of, slow, basically. And but here, he wasn't just slow, he was making all sorts of mistakes, which he admits himself that the accident in qualifying was his fault. He takes the blame for that. The accident in the race was his fault. He takes the blame for that. And he was disturbed. He said he was disturbed by the air from the car in front, probably Hulkenberg's car in front. But as was pointed out by Davidson after the race, often these drivers follow the car in front. They shouldn't do, because you never know when the car in front is going to make a mistake. But it must be very tempting to just lock your eyes on the car in front, especially if you're trying to close in on them and overtake them. And so when that car goes off, sometimes, as Martin Brundle always says, you go off in sympathy, basically. The car behind goes off in sympathy. And Hulkenberg was particularly wide going through that turn 5. And it may well be that Piastri just followed him, basically. And then his tyres locked up, and because he was already at a wide angle, that's why he crashed. But so Piastri has taken full blame for all the mistakes in practice and qualifying and the race, and more mistakes than, has to be said, than Lando has ever done in a race. Lando has done more mistakes over the whole year. Okay, I accept that. He's done more mistakes over the whole year, but in this race, Lando hasn't had as much of an error strewn race as this one was for Oscar. But I'm sure it's just an outlier, and he'll be back on it next year. It's a shame that Norris couldn't take advantage of it, though. It just goes to show how difficult it is to overtake. He managed to get past Leclerc, but he had tyres that were about 18 laps younger. And then, unfortunately, he was stuck behind Tsunoda, who had tyres a lap younger than Norris's, and they were mediums as well. So basically, so Norris got chomped after there was a yellow flag. What was that? What was the safety car? Oh, well, of course, I suppose the safety car was for Piastri, of course, wasn't it? And Norris did his usual. My dad it will be 91 in a few months' time, and I think he could get away a start or a restart or a start quicker than Norris. He is so slow. I've always said it. He's super fast. He's faster than Piastri. I still think he's faster than Piastri in the middle of a stint or at the end of a stint, but he's so slow at the beginning of a stint, at the beginning of a race. He seems to be, it's like he's drifted off or something, and he's staring off outside the cockpit, and then suddenly, we're off. Lando's got to sort that out, and he was slow on that restart after the safety car, and Leclerc just easily cruised past him. And then Lando spent ages trying to get past him. Lando, of course, had yet another slow pit stop. The one in Monza, the team made up for it, simply because Lando had given the position to had given the first pit stop to Oscar, remember? That's why it wasn't just because Lando had a slow pit stop. It wasn't for that reason. It was because Lando had given the first pit stop to Oscar. So obviously they were going to swap positions, just like they did in Hungary 2024, remember? It was the other way around in Hungary 2024. It was Lando giving the position to Oscar, which he shouldn't have done because he was the one in fighting for the championship, not Oscar. So he shouldn't have done that in Hungary last year. But anyway, I've got myself sidetracked. So, but yeah, it was yet another slow pit stop, about 4 odd seconds. This one seemed to be a bit more explainable. They just couldn't get the gun on the nut properly, something like that. Whereas the one in Monza, the guy just seemed to zone out. The guy on the wheel just seemed to sit there and was sort of whistling to himself until someone tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Are you gonna tighten this wheel?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, sorry, yeah." That was very. I hope he wasn't an Oscar mechanic, because he'll get a lot of grief if he is an Oscar mechanic. That would not be good in Monza. Anyway, this one seemed to be just a gun problem with the gun, but it meant even though Andrea Stella has denied that lost Norris positions, it clearly did, because he had a pit stop 2 seconds, more than 2 seconds slower than it should have been. And then he came out just behind Leclerc and Lawson. He would have jumped Leclerc and Lawson. And also Tsunoda, because when Tsunoda came in a lap later, he came out and he just in front of Lawson. So he would have been 3 places further up, Norris. Now, he did get one of them back when he got past Leclerc, but he lost 4 points. He should have got 10 points for 5th place. I don't think he would have caught Antonelli, but he might have caught Antonelli. I don't think he would have had time to have passed him. So I think had the pit stop not gone wrong, Norris would have been 5th instead of 7th. They've got to look at these pit stops, haven't they? But if the gun is just not working properly, there's not a lot you can do about that, apart from, because I'm sure they inspect these guns beforehand. But anyway, that lost Norris 4 points, so only 6 points gained on Piastri, 25 points behind. That's a big escape for Oscar, that is. This doesn't make up for Zandvoort, though, because this was Piastri's mistake. Zandvoort was not Norris's mistake. So this Piastri mistake here in this race, you could say that counters Canada, which was Norris's mistake. And so, there was one crazy line. It was the funniest line. It's one of the funniest things I've heard anyone say in the F1 commentary for a long time, is when, with a completely straight face, now everyone knows that I hate all the talk constantly about, when you've got a driver or a team way out in front in the championship and they are going to win the championship unless the driver in second place or the team in second place wins every single remaining race with the one that's leading not scoring. And yet still the commentators and pundits and everyone and presenters try to beef up the excitement, try to get they can win. And they've been doing it with this race. McLaren, here are the permutations. McLaren can win if they manage to outscore Ferrari by 9 points, is what it was. They'll win the champ. They're already about 400 points or something ahead. What are they? They're 340 odd points in front. Okay, Ferrari would basically have to win all the remaining races and pretty much finish first and second in them all, with McLaren having a race similar to this one for Ferrari or Mercedes to stand a chance of winning the championship. So you stop talking about it because it's going to happen. Let's talk about Norris v Piastri, yeah? And Verstappen as well. Is Verstappen going to come up and challenge the two McLarens? That's what we should be talking about, not exactly when McLaren can win a championship that we know for certain they are going to win. But it was hilarious, this particular line. and annoying as well, both funny and annoying, when Karun Chandok on the Sky commentary said, with a completely straight face, I could tell he wasn't laughing or anything, he said, and I quote, he said, "To be honest, Harry, there's a sense of inevitability around the Constructors' Championship." I mean, oh dear. I had to immediately pause the TV and write that line down so that I could repeat it exactly as said. And I also listened out for some sort of sarcasm in his voice. Nothing at all. And then he followed that on to talk about how actually, really what we should be talking about is the real interest really in this race is, can Norris score more points to close in on Piastri? Well, of course that's stating the obvious, isn't it? Of course that's the interest, isn't it? The interest is not whether or not McLaren are going to win the championship of this race. I don't care. We know they are going to win the championship. To be honest, Harry, there's a sense of inevitability around the Constructors' Championship. Well done, Karun Chandok, for getting a sense of the inevitability. Well done. You picked up on that sense, Karun. Right. Albon got a 10-second penalty, didn't he? Because he tapped Gasly. No complaints there, really. It wasn't Gasly's fault. Albon went for a gap that wasn't there. He had made a mistake in qualifying, which I think that didn't get him through Q1, did it? I don't think. So Sainz, who managed to just time his fastest lap perfectly in Q3, just got it just right, as did Lawson, of course. And Sainz, just to show how difficult it is to overtake, Sainz was able to hold on. Well done, Russell, who's been ill all weekend but felt better on Sunday. Well done, Russell, for actually managing to do some overtaking and getting up to second place. That was very good, because I'm sure he qualified 5th, didn't he? So he got past Antonelli, Lawson and Sainz. Did he pass any of them on the track? I think Antonelli let Russell pass, didn't he? Can't remember if Russell passed any of them on the actual track. Anyway, still very good from Russell to get up to second. Supreme performance, of course, by Max Verstappen. 2 wins on the trot now, 2 dominant wins. I don't think that will continue. As soon as we get to a high downforce track, which I think Singapore is, then the McLarens are going to be back on the song again. So I don't think Verstappen has a chance in the championship, but it's still interesting how he has closed in. But it's too far away. He's too far away, I think. This race, one thing I did notice is what a good race it was for struggling teammates. Not all struggling teammates, but for a lot of struggling teammates, it was a really good race. It was a good race for Tsunoda. In quali, he was good, and finishing 6th place, which I think is where he qualified. That was a good performance. Held off Norris. Norris couldn't get past him at the end because they were on tyres the same age, and Tsunoda was on mediums as well. Sainz, of course, he's been a struggling teammate all year of Albon. He had a fantastic race. Lawson, he's been struggling against Hadjar all season, and he put in a really good one. Hamilton put in a good weekend, not necessarily race, but he put in a good weekend in his struggles against Leclerc. And Antonelli, of course, put in a very good performance. Didn't beat Russell, but he was very close. He beat Russell in qualifying. He was about 3/10 ahead of him in qualifying, but Russell was ill. But anyway, Antonelli, though, it's a good performance. So, struggling teammates didn't necessarily beat their teammates. Well, Hamilton and Antonelli didn't, but Sainz and Tsunoda didn't, but Sainz and Lawson did. But these are all drivers that have struggled all year against the performance of their teammate, and yet they all did well in this race. Tsunoda, Sainz, Lawson, Hamilton, Antonelli. Well, with Hamilton, I had to say race weekend, because the race wasn't great for him, but and the quali wasn't good for him. Practice 2, okay, practice 2 was very good for Hamilton. So that was something I noticed. Norris doing his usual routine of going long on a set of tyres. He went extra long on his mediums. So that was just Norris being Norris again. Yeah, that was terrible, that slow pit stop for Norris. This is an interesting stat that I didn't know until I saw it pop up on the TV, but Carlos Sainz is only the second driver to have been on the podium for McLaren, Ferrari and Williams. The only other one that's done that is Alain Prost. Now, of course, the reason why is because Williams have not been a force for a long time, so they don't get many podiums. So you might get plenty that have been on the podium for McLaren and Ferrari, but because Williams have not been a force for a long time, they're not picking up any podiums. Now, of course, the last time they were a big force, a championship-winning force, was with Alain Prost when he won the championship in the Williams in 1993. Before that, he was in a Ferrari, and before that, he was in a McLaren. So, yes, that's why it's been a long time since anyone's done that. But Sainz is only and it's never been done before Prost. So Alain Prost and Carlos Sainz, the only two. Prost, a driver from my childhood, basically. I think he started in about 1980. I was 9 years old. I started watching F1 from every single race in 1982. Right when Prost was starting to come into dominance. So yeah, very much a driver from my childhood, Prost, right up until my early 20s, when he won his last championship. So there you have it, and there it is. That race, it now makes a 25-point gap. I think Piastri has this in the bag, because we were thinking, or I was thinking, and others were thinking, the only way for Norris to win the championship would be for Piastri to have a retirement in the same way that Norris did in Zandvoort. Now, of course, Piastri has had that retirement, but unfortunately Norris only scored 6 points. So I think it's the same, it's a stalemate. Had they both not scored points in this race, then that would have been advantage to Piastri. That would have been a win for Piastri, because there would have been one less race for Norris to close that gap. But I think it's pretty much a stalemate, this race between Piastri and Norris, because the gap was 31 points with 8 races remaining. It's now 25 points with 7 races remaining. I think that's pretty much even Stevens on this race between them. Maybe a slight edge for Norris there, but pretty much even Stevens. Also, it's virtually the same gap as it would have been if Norris had won the race and Piastri had been second. And had that happened, everyone would have been going, oh, here we go, here comes Norris, he's coming for Piastri. But they're not saying that after this race, because Norris was 7th, but it's actually pretty much nearly the same points difference. A win to second place would be 7 points. Right, this was 6 points gained by Norris, so it's nearly all but 1 point. It's the same as if Norris had won and Piastri had been second. And if it was a sprint weekend, and say Piastri won the sprint race with Norris second, but then in the Grand Prix Norris won with Piastri second, then that would be 6 points. And because he would have won the race, everyone would be saying, here comes Norris. But because he's 7th in this race, they're not saying that. And I'm not either, I don't think. I'm thinking that I think Norris might be a beaten man this year. I think Oscar is too strong in the head. But we will see if there is any fallout, I should say, from this race for Oscar mentally. If there isn't, then that's going to be extremely difficult for Norris. It will take another retirement from Piastri for Norris to get in there, even though I still believe Norris is quicker. I mean, he was quicker in Monza, and he was quicker all weekend here as well. So Norris is quicker, the slightly quicker of the two drivers. but Oscar is less accident prone. If you ignore the incredibly accident prone Azerbaijan, then he's not accident prone. Right, I think I've discussed it enough. Basically, yeah, there you go. What did I want to look at? Oh yeah, one thing I was going to say is that when that fella Komatsu replaced Günther Steiner at Haas, I said you won't see any change in Haas's performance. They'll have the odd. They'll alternate between a good year, bad year, good year, bad year. They'll be sort of 6th in the championship one year, then 9th, then 6th again, then 9th, then 6th, then 9th, just like with Steiner. And everyone was saying to me, no, Komatsu, he's much better than Steiner, and Haas will climb. And they did have a good year. I think last year was Komatsu's first year, wasn't it? I think it was. And yeah, it was an okay year. But then this year they're down in 9th place. Okay, what I said was going to happen is exactly what's happening, basically. There's no difference between Günther Steiner and Komatsu as regards the performance of the team at the moment. So they didn't need to get rid of Steiner. But anyway, there you go. Steiner is a better team principal because he's the sort of person that would be able to walk into a room and get a load of sponsors because of his personality. And potentially lose some, because of his personality. But anyway, Komatsu is more of a techie, of course. He's an engineering techie. I'm not saying that Komatsu's done a bad job. It's just that I thought it would be exactly the same. I didn't think there'd be any change after they swapped Steiner for Komatsu, and that's proven to be correct. So, if you disagree with that, please comment. Please do. Right, so thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to like the video or comment, then please do. Or subscribe as well, please do. Or leave a tip on the thanks button below the below the video. And I will see you on the very next video, whatever it may be about. And what might it be about? Who knows? Goodbye for now.